everybody. And so this is Jude Pemell, and tonight I'm speaking from and would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians, which is the Darug people up here in the Blue Mountains. And I'd like to pay my respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging. And also note that I speak from unceded Aboriginal land. So tonight's topic is one that really interests me. So the topic is free will or destiny, and what has memory got to do with it? And so I would like all of you to treat this as interactive. And so if you would like to ask a question, please feel free to interrupt. Is that okay?
Yes.
Good.
Yep.
Excellent. Yes. So I'm on a squeaky chair here up at the retreat centre of Wira. So hear a few squeaks, just ignore it.
What next? This woman doesn't give up. Anyway, go on.
So, first of all, let me talk about free will and destiny. So there's quite a deep theological argument that surrounds this topic, and it's not a new argument. And so the theological argument contends that free will and omniscience are incompatible. Omniscience sort of meaning God, a Godhead, are incompatible, and that any concept of God that incorporates both is completely inconceivable. Now, if a person has free will, then what this means is that they are the ultimate cause of their own actions. And determinism, I don't know if you've heard this term, determinism, but let me explain. It's a philosophy that all events, or a philosophical perspective, that all events are completely determined by previously existing causes. And so there's a philosophical argument that exists here, primarily because determinism is not consistent with modern society's idea of self-responsibility and self-control, and these two things are seen as the basis of our moral and legal social codes in our society today. And so determinism says that free will is an illusion, and that our behaviour is governed by forces which may be internal or external or environmental, over which we have no control at all. And so from a spiritual perspective, we would see that beliefs are what guide our choices and inform our actions. So belief, choice, action, I'm sure you've heard me say this before. This is probably from a spiritual perspective, the central organising force in our lives. Not all behaviours are determined. We have personal agency and will make choices in life accordingly. So beliefs can change in a second. Have you experienced that? I bet you have. And the consequences of our actions can change our beliefs. many factors can influence our beliefs and choices. And so free will is seen by the humanistic movement, was a movement in psychology that involved Abraham Maslow, was started by Abraham Maslow, and then Carl Rogers joined in. He was a little bit more recent. And so they were humanists. And so free will is seen by the humanist movement to be necessary if we are to be fully functional human beings. And from a spiritual perspective, these two theories not only must coexist, but when the theory of cyclic time is understood deeply, this challenges our linear trained programming, because all of us have been programmed with linear time and with linear thinking. When we came through school, and society's understanding of time is that it is linear. But, linear time is a very recent philosophy, a very recent theory, and it has never been proven. It's only a theory, so it has not been proven. So our linear trained minds and our linear trained programming and thinking really struggles with the concept of cyclic time, particularly when it's introduced to us. And similarly, so much of what comprises spiritual understandings can be completely paradoxical in nature, because the spiritual understanding here is that free will and predetermination coexist. And the mind can't get a handle on this. The human mind just cannot go there. But the part of us that absolutely can go there is our heart. And, I think I've mentioned before that the heart has its own wisdom, that the neurocardiologists have discovered neural pathways in the heart, and a lot of research, particularly from the Heart Math Foundation in America, where they research the heart, and from a quantum, and they embrace quantum physics and stuff, but they have absolutely shown that the heart has a kind of brain of its own, and that it thinks independently of the brain. And it is in this area of our intellect or our mind that these two things do coexist, and we can absolutely, completely understand the coexistence of both of them. And so one of the things that Freud is very famous for, and even still acknowledged for, he's totally given recognition for this, and it's probably the most important discovery of his was the discovery of the unconscious. And, it was Freud who, as we did last week, we looked at the conscious, the pre-conscious or subconscious, and the unconscious. And so if you were tuned in last week, this will make sense. That Freud discussed the influence of the unconscious on our thoughts and actions. And whatever influences our thoughts and actions is influencing our behaviour. The only thing is that when it's coming from the unconscious, we don't actually understand why we do something or why we think something. And, you know, another one of the great minds in psychology was Erich Fromm, and he argued in his work called The Fear of Freedom that we all have the potential to control our own lives, but are too afraid to do so. Hence, we allow circumstances, other people, or irrational feelings to control our lives. And this is where both psychotherapy and spiritual training can play a huge role in enabling us to understand our true capacity and our immense potential to develop this fully. This kind of intervention will inevitably prove life-changing. And I'm sure all of you have found that. So let's look at behaviour and memory. Now, memory is a very complex and interwoven system. It comes from our body, our emotions, and our mental structures. There are many pathways for memory to form. And there are different forms of memories. There is long range and there's short range. And I guess I was just saying last week that one of the biggest things that forms memory is our senses, because we take so much information in through our senses, and those senses are decoded by the limbic brain, which governs our emotions, our feelings, and our experiences, and codes them. The memories are coded and they get stored. So we are a very, very sophisticated, almost impossible to comprehend computer. The design of the human being is quite extraordinary. And as my mum used to say when I was young, she'd say to me, she was a nurse, by the way, a trained nurse, and she used to say to me, you know, so many of the people she worked with were atheists, and she said, when you understand just how just an eyeball works, I don't see how you can be an atheist, because the design is so incredible. So we have our long range and our short range memories, and the most enduring memories are memories that come in via the senses and connect to emotional memories. They connect directly to the limbic system where the soul is situated, and they tend to be pure experience minus a mental construct that's around them. And so they are very powerful for that reason. You know, when you walk into, you know, you might be somewhere and you'll smell something cooking, maybe someone's baking, and you can smell cake or cookies or something delicious in the oven, and bang, in an instant, in a millisecond, you're back in your grandmother's kitchen when you were tiny, and she was baking something. And that smell will just click like that. Or we see something, or, it could be any of our senses, a taste or whatever, and it will just, bang, take us back instantaneously through memory. And so that's why our senses are such powerful triggers of memory, that memories that have been buried, maybe for many decades. And so unlike mental constructs, because when we experience something, we'll experience it and then we'll think about it and we'll form a whole mental construct around it, and we'll put it in a framework. And so unlike memory that has mental constructs, sensory memory is much more complex than a movie-like experience. Anything stored as an emotive memory connected to the physical senses has the ability to control the mind. And that's why it's so powerful, because you won't know that it's controlling your mind. And so memories that we will have from our infancy will not be, an infant does not have declarative memory. Now, declarative memory means that it's able to be spoken. So babies have no ability for cognition. They can't form a mental construct. They can't rationalise. They can't form cognitions or thoughts around anything. And that comes later on, around about the time a child is beginning school 4, in preschool, their cognitive brain is coming online. And so the infant with no declarative memory can't store memories with any mental construct around them. But it might be, depending on what happened to the baby, these memories could be having a very, very, very powerful effect on that person when they become an adult, from the unconscious and the subconscious. So this is why memory is a very powerful thing. And so it can influence our behaviours, our actions, our thoughts. So some memories are stored through the body, and emotional memory cannot ever be spoken. They are not stored in that way, but they are the most powerful drivers. Only the body and emotions explain it, that which cannot be verbalised. And this is why sometimes if someone's got very early trauma, they've experienced trauma in their very infancy and very early lives, body work can help them, to get in touch with those sensations and possibly begin to make some sense. This is something that is very much for psychotherapy. And there are many books written about this by psychologists and psychiatrists, body memories and the power of body memories and how to work with them and how to work through them and resolve trauma through that work. There are some
Jude, is body memory the same as cell memory?
Yes, cellular
When they
memory.
talk about cellular memory, it's the same thing, is it?
Yes, it
Yeah.
is. It is
Yeah.
indeed. And because we're energy, the soul is energy.
Mm.
And our energy, the soul sends life force to the heart, which is then pumped around the body in the blood. And the blood goes to every cell in the body. So every cell in our body contains our life force energy, which contains all of our experience. And this is how all of this gets stored in the body. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
You can only understand memory completely by understanding energy.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
You can only understand a lot of things deeply and completely by understanding energy and how we work spiritually. People talk about the mind-body connection, but that's also quite a basic sort of approach, because there's much more to it than just that rather simplified way of understanding. And so body work can be very good for dealing with early emotional memory. And if it is not connected to severe trauma, if it is connected to severe trauma, then psychological work is required. And body work cannot overcome severe. One of the effects of trauma is dissociation. But body work can't treat a dissociative, what we call a dissociative influence, or, the favoured term in psychology, disorder. And it can actually make it more severe, body work, and create experiences that are impossible for the person to process. So we have to be very careful around, certainly from my perspective, around people who've had early trauma, trying to resolve it through body work. It can make them a lot worse. So if someone can connect with their body, this can be a really good place to start. Trauma makes us disconnect from our body because we don't want to feel. And emotions are created, in the limbic brain and the central nervous system. But between those two, emotions are created. And they are felt, they're felt and stored as well in the body. And someone doesn't want to get in touch with those feelings and experiences, then they're going to jump out of their body. And, many people are not walking around and just are not connected to their body. They're in their head. And they will do anything to stay in their head because they don't want to feel. And it's unconscious. It is unconscious. And so connecting with our bodies can be a really good place to start. If cognition is present around a memory, then, it's fine. We know what's happened and so on. But if there is no cognition, the body does not have a mind of its own. Contrary, you will hear people talk about mind-body or the body-mind. The body does not have a mind. Only the soul has a mind. And so the body does not have a mind of its own. So it cannot judge or think. It simply stores experience. That is the reality. Each soul has a unique vibration which can be recognized consciously and also unconsciously. For most, it is unconscious. And I'm sure all of you we've all had the experience where you've met somebody in your life. This has probably happened many times, many, many times. You've met someone and it has triggered some kind of response in you that gives you the feeling that you know this person, that you have known them before, but you know that you have not met before in this life. And so this recognition of a soul's vibration, infants for as young as 3 months can distinguish between different people because of their vibration. They know their mother's vibration so intimately because they resided in their mother's body for 6 months, and the soul. And also, if mother, of course, is the primary caregiver, then she will, under normal circumstances, spend more time with baby than anybody else. And so baby is very, very aware of mum's vibration, recognises it and wants that vibration to be close. So someone's voice affects us as well, but much more the vibration. I don't know about you, but I'm very sensitive to a person's voice. I can really read what's going on with a person when I hear their voice. And I guess my professional training has really helped me to do that. But I can tell where a person's self-esteem is from the way they speak, the tone and timbre of their voice.
So Jude,
yeah.
Can I just share one little experience, please? First time I went to Rajasthan in India, our headquarters in Brahmakumaris, and I actually met this soul for the first time. And she said, wow, you are an ancestor soul. Welcome, welcome. And she was like my grandmother, and she really felt like that. She gave me that grandmotherly love. It was so sweet, my first experience ever. Wow.
Yes.
It was a wow moment.
Yes.
I really felt I really went home. So that was very touching for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I was, I think around spiritual awakening, there are a lot of those experiences of deep recognition, and it's all energetic. So we are very sensitive to energy fields, but it's not cognitive. We just feel it at the level of energy. When you walk into a room, you can read. It might be filled with strangers, but you will pick up on the energy immediately, the energy field in the room, and the moment you pick up on that energy field, you may want to walk out of the room, or you may want to go further into it because of the type of energy field. So most people have been trained to disconnect this recognition, to dismiss it and rationalise it. but babies still have it. You know, that intuitive ability to pick up on energy, it isn't completely destroyed in some people, and babies are so young, it's certainly they're picking up on energy all the time. And, you know, you'll see a toddler or little one or an animal, dog or a cat or whatever, someone's got really good heart energy, they will gravitate to that person and they will pick up energy that is not good, and they will not go to that person even though they may know them quite well. So they're more likely to go to someone they don't know who's got a beautiful heart energy because they just pick right up on it. So most people have been trained to disconnect that recognition, you know, by the development of the cognitive mind in our education process, or because, you know, we are disciplined by our parents or others not to do things that we're intuitively doing. We're told not to do them, that we're being silly or something. And so much is lost to the soul as it grows. And our trust in that recognition can die because it comes from a very deep place that is normally not experienced. It is a conscious choice for the soul to pay attention at the level of awareness. It's a conscious choice, and it is a lost art. Now, meditation enhances our ability to intuit, because our intuition is the voice of the soul. And as when we adopt meditation as a lifestyle, when we do it every day and increase the period of time that we do it for each day, and then the longevity, the years that we've done it, it becomes ever more deep. And so what this does, the effect of this over time, and you may have noticed this, is that it starts to deprogram our rational mind, or a lot of the stuff we've learned that is not real. It's not true for us. And the more we get in touch with our intuitive knowledge and our intuitive understanding, and with what the heart knows, then this is when we really start deprogramming ourselves from a lot of the beliefs and the rubbish that surrounds us in the world, in the media, on social media, stuff we've been taught at school. I'll never forget when I had that realisation. My God, what a wake-up call that was. That happened in an instant. And, you know, it will ring an alarm deep inside us to begin with. And that, as I was mentioning last week, that will grow into what we call cognitive dissonance. So that deep intuitive feeling that I have inside about things, maybe in conflict with something we're experiencing in the environment, in the outer world, or belief systems or values that we're being asked to adopt, or that we maybe have adopted in the past. Once we start to meditate, we'll start throwing a lot of that old stuff out, because we know it's not true. We just know deeply and internally. And so the collective consciousness is a vibration of many people many souls flowing together like a river. And it seems like one, but the collective consciousness is just made up of lots and lots of different vibrational frequencies. And it is a very, very, very powerful force, never to be underestimated. It is what brings change. One must first know to identify the soul as a spiritual energy before one can understand collective consciousness in this form. It is not indiscriminate energy flowing everywhere. It has purpose and meaning. The dimensions on which it travels connect with the karmic dimension as well as the physical plane. This is like ocean and air currents. All have their purpose and role, and so does this energy. And so this is another way of understanding the effect of memory on our free will, our destiny. And because the more deeply we meditate, then the more in touch we will become with our complete potential, with our full, amazing spiritual potential, and with our highest destiny. So with collective consciousness, the ocean current